Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to another edition of Crime Stories. We're gonna we're gonna try to do this again as the last episode. The last time around, technical problems did not work out well, and Crime Stories is exactly what it seems like and what it hears like. Webcast, gonna do it in the dark. Who cares if it's light out or not? As we approach 12:29. On a Thursday, September 19th. We will try to do these every other week. These are stories that most likely I will not be able to go there in person, right, due to distance and just geography wise. And, it gives me, being that this is like a true crime, grave, um, kind of sideshow kind of roadside attractions, and places type of a channel. Thought this would help sprinkle in the true crime content along with the various places that I go to. This story takes place in Tennessee. It's the Lily Lyd murders, and they took place in Greene County, Tennessee. Greene County. Um, Happened in 1997, April of 1997. Give you a little background on the story. Uh, Vidar Liliad, this involved the family. Okay, Vidar Liliad, who is the victim, one of the victims. He grew up in Bergen, Norway, and in 1985 he moved to the United States. In 1989, Vidar married Delfina, a first generation Honduran American from New York City, whom he had met through their common involvement in the Jehovah's Witness. Vidar and Delfina would have two children, Tabitha, who was born in 1990, and Peter, who was born in 1995. On April 6th of 1997, six young people, ages 14 to 20, from Pikeville, Kentucky. They were Jason Bryant, Natasha Cornett, Dean Mullins, Joseph Risner, Crystal Sturgill, and Karen Howell. They were traveling to New Orleans, Louisiana, from Pikeville, Kentucky. Shortly after leaving Pikeville, they realized that Joseph Risner's car would likely not make it to New Orleans. Wonder if even it was Jason's car. Where did Jason get the car from? So what did they do? They discussed stealing a vehicle from a parking lot of dealerships. And this group was armed with two handguns, a 9mm, and the other one was a 25 caliber. At a rest stop, Interstate 81, outside of Baileyton in rural Greene County, Tennessee. Can imagine, hardly any cars are probably going there. Very rural. Eyewitnesses observed six youths in conversation with the Lily Lyd family, who was returning from a religious convention. Vidar who was carrying his son Peter, had approached Cornett and Howell to discuss his religious views. Now, Risner and Bryant joined the conversation. At some point, Risner, he had displayed one of the guns and said, "I hate to do you this way, but we're going to have to take you with us for your van." As Risner directed the Lillard family into their van, Vidar, he pleaded with the group, offering his keys and wallet in exchange for being left at the rest stop. But Risner, he refused. Risner, Bryant, Howell, and Cornett, they rode in the van with the Lillylids. Vidar, he drove while Wisner, holding the gun on him, sat in the passenger seat. You had Mullins and Sturgill. They followed in Risner's car. In an attempt to calm her children, Delphina began to sing, and it was reported that Bryant reportedly ordered her to stop. Risner directed the Lillylids first to the interstate and then to a secluded road at the next exit. And that exit was Payne Hollow Lane near Greenville. The Lillylids were then lined up against a ditch along the road. That's where they were shot. Checking the bodies, Bryant stated they're still alive, and then he shot them again. After removing the license plates from Risner's car, the group abandoned it at the crime scene. Not smart, dumb kids, not smart. Evidence, fibers, hairs. They continued their journey towards New Orleans in the van. They left the family for dead. They stopped at the Waffle House while traveling through Georgia at a Waffle House. You need to fill the tummies. Traveling through Georgia, but left the restaurant when a group of police officers had arrived. Now, they decided to change course of action and they decided to drive into Mexico instead of going to New Orleans. Now, when they had reached the border of New Mexico, they were initially denied admittance because they did not have the proper forms of identification. But eventually, they had found a way into the country. Now, while in Mexico, Bryant was shot in the hand and leg. That's a good thing. And the group was stopped by the Mexican police. When they claimed that they were lost, the police officers ordered the group out of the van and they conducted a search. They found a knife as well as a photo album that belonged to the Lillard family. They ordered the group to re-enter the United States, where American Border Patrol officers searched them, and they subsequently took them to an Arizona jail. Now, at the time of their arrest, 2 days after the murders, when they, attempted to cross the Mexican border, several of them had personal items belonging to the Lillids in their possession. There were autopsies done as the investigation began. Cleland Blake, a forensic pathologist, he testified that Vidar's body had six gunshot wounds, one to the right side of his head and five to his chest. The first shot entered his right eye. It traveled through his temple and it exited in front of his right ear. While they could not be certain, it was Blake's opinion that this shot was fired from a 9mm handgun and would have caused a loss of consciousness. Vidar then fell to the ground on his back and was shot 3 times in the upper right side of his chest. The wounds were also described as being consistent with those from a 9mm and targeted so they would form a equilateral triangle. A wound just below Vidar's nipple was consistent with a .25 caliber weapon. And a final wound from a 9mm was just located beneath it. There was a laceration on Vidar's right forearm where he had been grazed by a bullet, and postmortem superficial abrasions to the back of his legs. He most likely died, did Vidar, within a few minutes of the initial gunshot to his right eye. Delfina, well, she was shot 8 times. All 8 bullets were recovered. 6 were from a 9mm and 2 were from a 25 caliber. The first shot, which they believe was from 9mm, shattered a bone in her left arm. The second shot, also from a 9mm, shattered the femur in her left thigh. Blake testified that these shots would not have killed her, but would have caused severe pain, leaving her unable to stand. Delfina was shot an additional 6 times while on her back, with the first 3 shots striking the left side of her abdomen. Blake's opinion that these shots were fired to form a kind of a triangle pattern similar to those inflicted on Vidar. The 3 shots pierced her stomach, leaving a 4 to 5 inch tear, and traveled through her pancreas, her spleen, left kidney, and left adrenal gland. A final 9mm entry wound was located at the midsection of her abdomen, just above her navel, and the bullet was recovered from her spine. There was a .25 caliber gunshot wound right under her left armpit where the bullet entered, coming to a stop in the skin on the back of her left shoulder. She also suffered abrasions on her right calf. Delfina's wounds were not immediately fatal, and she could have been conscious for as long as 25 minutes, including while her body was driven over Spider-Man. There was 60-year-old Tabitha who was shot once in the head with a small caliber weapon, with the bullet entering the left side of her skull, traveled downward, and it exited behind her right ear. The wound caused immediate brain death. Hospitalized, she remained on life support until her uncle, who had been named her custodian, gave permission for several of her organs to be donated. Physicians harvested her heart, her liver, her gallbladder, kidneys, the pancreas, spleen, and adrenal glands. Tabitha was pronounced dead one day after the shooting. There was also Peter Lillian. Lillian, I'm sorry. Peter Lillian. He was shot twice with a small caliber weapon. One shot entered behind his right ear, and it exited near his right eye. A second gunshot, it penetrated his back and exited through his chest. He was transported by a helicopter to a pediatric intensive care unit at the University of Tennessee Memorial Hospital in Knoxville, where he was listed in critical condition. He required vigorous resuscitation, being that he sustained a contusion to his right lung with some residual bleeding in his right chest cavity. Doctors removed his damaged left eye 10 days after the shooting. He remained in the hospital 17 days before being transferred to a Knoxville rehab center. He made it. He was the only one that survived. Only one. All six of the perpetrators, they were from Kentucky. They were known to have troubled backgrounds. They struggled academically or with substance abuse. And with the exception of Bryant, they had attended high school. Natasha Cornett, by all accounts, she had been a polite and good student until sixth grade, when her academic performance declined. She left school before completing ninth grade and had no history of employment except babysitting. Cornett started using alcohol and illegal drugs, including heroin, ecstasy, and cocaine. And at the age of 14, she was arrested for forgery due to the theft of a box of checks and was sentenced to juvenile court and to 1 year probation. Well, Cornett was then arrested a second time for assaulting her mother and threatening to kill her with a knife. Dean Mullins, 19 years old, left school in 1996 during his 12th grade year, but was working on his GED. Mullins had no criminal record, and he had been employed at a grocery store in Pikeville, Kentucky. His behavior, Dean Mullins' family said, well, his behavior started getting worse after he started being involved with Cornett. That's Natasha Cornett, whom he had planned to marry. Joseph Risner was 20 years old, never met his biological father, and adopted his stepfather's last name. lived in Columbia, Kentucky, but moved to Georgia where he had started fourth grade. Now, Risner, he was described as a satisfactory student with a good work ethic until the separation of his mother and his stepfather, which affected him emotionally. It changed him. Risner, well, kind of went downhill when he had declined academically, failing 7th and 8th grade before his marks improved in 10th grade, while he completed at Betsy Lane High School. Resner did join the Army in June of 1995, but he received an administrative discharge after testing positive for marijuana. Crystal Sturgill was in her senior year at Betsy Lane High School and also had attended Floyd County Technical School in Drift, Kentucky, where records indicate that she had been a slightly above average student. Now, when her academic performance stopped and declined, she blamed this on drugs and alcohol. However, she performed well on standardized tests, including a total score of 28 on her ACT, and had applied for admission to several colleges. Jason Blake Bryan, he was 14. He had an IQ of 85, and he had the emotional and social skills of an 11-year-old. Now, he had a history of alcohol and drug abuse beginning as early as age 3 and was in the 8th grade at Millard High School in Pike, Kentucky. He had met Cornett in Pikeville a month before the murders. Now, Brian, he was the youngest of this group and was a legal minor at the time. Wow. Hmm. Now, during the sentencing hearing, and those were just some of the accused, I didn't want to go into every one of them. But during the sentencing hearing, Cornett said her first attorney coached her to say that she was the daughter of Satan. Well, that thought, guys, we'll take a little pause, we'll take a little break. Right back. Now, back. District Attorney Berkeley Bell considered the satanic angle a distraction, although he utilized, occult experts during his investigation. And he was relieved when Cornett's first attorney was replaced by the presiding judge. References were made by witnesses and prosecutors at the trial to rumors that the six were involved in some type of cult and Satanism. However, there was never no evidence of such involvement, and that such involvement was present. Nothing ever to point the finger towards that direction. The omission was cited in Cornett's unsuccessful 2020 appeal of her conviction. Bell, who was the district attorney at that time, he had said in interviews that Bryant was the only one that he could prove was a shooter, but he felt it wouldn't be just unless he convicted all six of murder. Therefore, before jury selection was completed, a plea bargain was drawn up in which the death penalty would be taken off the table if the six pled guilty to first-degree murder. However, Bell stipulated that all six defendants had to accept the deal and do so within a very short period of time, or the death penalty would be pursued. Howell has stated, for the record, and remember that was one of the perpetrators, that she wanted to fight it in the court, even though she said that she was not that subject to death penalty. But they were threatening to kill everyone if she did not sign. So she had caved into the pressure. So she said. Now all six defendants, they signed, and in March of 1998, they were convicted of felony murder as participants in a felony kidnapping and carjacking that resulted in 3 murders, 3 life sentences each, and attempted murder, 25 years each. Now each person received 3 life sentences, 1 for each murder, an additional 25 years for the attempted murder of Peter, who had survived. He has done actually recent interviews. He was in Norway for a while, living there, but now he's living here, I believe, in Tennessee again. So each received a 3-year life sentence, 1 for each murder, and an additional 25 years for the attempted murder of Peter. The 6 youths were sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. The judge, he had applied that the same aggravated circumstances for all. However, it was not determined which of them had the main blame for the killing. Who done it? Court testimony by the other defendants was that the youngest, Bryant, had fired shots, but the judge kind of, completely ignored that. Bryant admitted to Officer Deb Mackey in Arizona that he had shot Vidar. However, Mackey's testimony was not allowed as Bryant had not been read his rights before he made this admission. He later changed his story, saying Mullins and Reisner did the shooting. Now, just kind of makes you think. I was just thinking there. Wow. So again, Bryant later changed his story. He said that Mullins and Reisner did the shooting. Check this out. resentencing in 2016, Bryant and Howe, they became eligible for resentencing due to a case Montgomery versus Louisiana. You would think these people would have some type of remorse. Yeah, but these people still would get in jail after, even after their, plea bargain conviction deal. Yeah, Cornett, who in 2001 was on death row already, and she and her inmate alleged, attacked Christina Pike. They attacked her, nearly strangling Christina Pike. Miss Cornett there nearly strangled a prisoner by the name of Jones with a shoelace after Pike and Jones were placed in a holding cell. Now, although the Department of Corrections, they believe that Cornett was involved, investigators found insufficient evidence, to charge her with helping Pike, who was subsequently found guilty of attempted murder. Hmm. Just shaking my head and thinking about this case and how it's been really just something. Now, as far as this attack on Patricia Jones, um, Christina Pike was the one subsequently found guilty of attempted murder. Now, Bell, the district attorney, he had stated in several interviews that the six youths had planned a killing spree inspired by natural born killers. Considering that the killing began and entered the Lilliard party, the Lilliard family home, it was just very weird in hearing it that they all lost their life, on a desert. Bell, he insisted that the bodies were arranged in the shape of a cross. And that statement was actually refuted there by Sheriff Davenport. In his opinion, the teens were trying to get the hell out of there, and they did not, arrange the bodies in any manner. Just a sad story. Um, Peter eventually, was going through years of rehab. He eventually moved to um, back to Norway as a kid and was able to reconnect and learn about this, condition and through medical doctors that are on staff. What a tragic case. It's been some time. Just wonder what goes through people's head as they're committing these crimes. Very sad story. This has been episode 2 of Crying Tales. I hope all is well. Look forward to speaking to you guys very, very soon.